Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Universal Talk. On today's show, we ponder the Phoenix Lights. Let's present the case. First, we must consider that many of us have seen something in the sky that we simply cannot explain. Was it a military plane, or a flare, a weather balloon, or something entirely different? Then, if not personally witnessed, we must question the credibility of the witness. What if an educated, psychologically sound, and logical individual, such as a physician, saw such an item in the sky? In a moment, we will have Dr. Lynne Kitei on the show. Dr. Kitei is an internationally acclaimed physician, an award-winning health educator with a distinguished career spanning over 30 years. She was the chief clinical consultant of the Imaging Prevention Wellness Center at the renowned Arizona Heart Institute in Phoenix, before pushing her successful medical career aside to pursue the source and the meaning of the historical Arizona mass sighting event, which has now become known worldwide as the Phoenix Lights. Dr. Lynne Kitei, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Great. Hey, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself, or maybe something I didn't get in there?
Well, this isn't about me. It's about the data, but I have to say that it's very ironic, and you being a physician as well cannot totally understand, that I had no interest or knowledge in this topic at all. Before my husband is also a physician, and I had a very close sighting to our home in Paradise Valley. We live mountainside in Paradise Valley. There's a valley in between our mountain, and then there's mountains in the distance, South Mountain and the Estrella Mountain Range. And I have to say that, and I'll get back to that in a second, but we're pretty high in the mountain, and we have a panoramic view of the city skyline, which we enjoy. So we know what planes look like, and helicopters and streetlights and car lights and so forth. So when my husband called me actually out of a bath, very alarmed, and that's not his persona by any means, I grabbed a towel and ran to one wall of our bedroom as a window. And, you know, when we're in the bedroom, if there's something unusual out there, we get to see it. Anyway, a little below us, actually above a private gated residence, there's no way this was military, and we're kind of nestled in the mountains as well, and it's a no-fly zone. There were 3 amber orbs in a triangle formation, one on top and 2 closely aligned underneath, about 50, 75 feet off the ground, about 1,000 feet from our home, and a little below us, actually. And the first thought I had, because my background also is community education for over 30 years. I have a company that produces video and workbook curriculums on the reality of vital health issues for schools, like AIDS and teen pregnancy and substance abuse prevention education. So my first thought was, I've got to grab my video camera, but it was downstairs, and I really wanted to take everything in. It was like that mental moment, and they were about 3 to 6 feet each. And by the way, I always go back to this sighting whenever anybody brings up anything natural or military, because these were intelligently guided objects. There were 3 of them. They were oval shaped on their side, like an egg on the side, very closely aligned in a pyramid formation. And the color within each orb, and I call them an orb because the light did not extend outside the edge, it's very uniform amber color, very mesmerizing, did not glare at all. Every other light out there glared. It was so unusual and so awesome that I thought, if I don't get a picture of this, nobody's going to believe it. And as I run to the closet to get my 35 millimeter, which, by the way, is the best way to capture these things for analysis, luckily enough, I grabbed the 35 millimeter. My husband calls me back and says, "Get over here quick. One of them is disappearing." Well, the top orb, without budging, and I have to say the only movies I had seen to that date were Close Encounters and E.T., and we have 2 grown men now, but when they were boys as a family, we would occasionally watch the original Star Trek show for the beautiful messages. So I don't know if you remember the Romulan cloaking device, like it would waver,
right?
If you ever watched that. Well, I really noted that. I really took that moment in. It did not waver, it did not budge, but the top orb in place started to dim very, very slowly as it was imploding from the outside inwards. I mean, this was something that was mechanical or it certainly wasn't a natural phenomenon. This was happening in front of my eyes. It was unbelievably incredible. I go out onto the balcony and shot a picture of the two lower orbs. And I have to tell you, and by the way, all the pictures, and I have a very unique collection of photographic evidence, is on our website, Phoenix Lights Network, www.thephoenixlights.net, if listeners want to take a peek at it, because this first picture is on there as well. And the two lower orbs, I have to say, as not only was there an eerie silence, as if time had stopped, and I have to say when the first one had disappeared, it felt, you okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. When the top one had disappeared, it felt as if it was still there, as if it had disappeared into another dimension. I mean, it was just an incredible experience. And when I was looking at the two bottom orbs as I was on the balcony, I have to tell you, Joe, and it took me a long time to share this with anybody because it's so out there, but it felt that something was staring back at me, an intelligence was watching me. And going through my head at the time, and I did not share this with anyone till way after the mass sighting, I was thinking, who are you? What are you? Do you know that I'm here? I'd love to meet you. And the left bottom orb started to disappear. And I quickly shot a picture of that. Now, that was the only one that turned out at the time. For me, it was very confirming that we did see something. It was close. I captured as it was happening, as the left one was disappearing. And I didn't even know who to show it to. I knew nothing about this topic. Now, when we went back to the pictures, actually, and if you look at them on the website, you will see, and this is really important data, that the same exact line formation of lights that would show up 2 months before the mass sighting, which I'll get to, a very big sighting, and during the mass sighting, where I also caught video, is in the background. So the same exact phenomena was disappearing in the background in the distance while the closed orbs were close by. Now, I have to tell you, during the mass sighting, people would describe these orbs detaching from the main object, going out into the environment, and then redocking with it. Is that what happened in 1995? We can speculate. But anyway, I never saw anything similar to this for 2 years. And I, occasionally would look out the sky and wonder, why did we see it together? What kind of technology was this? I didn't know that we had this kind of advanced technology here on Earth. I had never heard anything about this, nor did I even know who to ask or where to look. And lo and behold, 2 months before the mass sighting, they appeared again, but at a distance, where those other ones were, at a distance in the same exact location. And it was so unnerving. This was January 23rd, 97, that I ran in. It's a long story. I won't go into detail because we don't have the time, but I happened to capture the same phenomena head-on, turning into a V shape, 6 pictures in a row, and they're also a sample of that is on the website, phoenixlights.net, thephoenixlights.net. And it was so unnerving because I thought, my God, this is so massive. It was over a mile wide and similar to what we had seen in 95. Was this a mothership? Was this a fleet? I mean, things started going through my head. I thought, come on, there's got to be a logical explanation. The next morning I woke up, started making calls, got air traffic controllers, found air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport who saw the same thing at the same time. And actually, as they described it, and they were more excited than I was that I had seen it too. Number one, they were hovering in Class B airspace. Now, there is a 30-mile radius around the center of the airport where anyone that comes into that area aerially, and especially 1,000 feet, which this was, has to call into the tower. Well, first of all, nobody ever called in. Secondly, it did not show up on radar. Then they picked up their binoculars to look, and in their own words, they described the phenomena as 6 points of light equally distant from each other, massive span over a mile wide, hovering in this restricted airspace, and they actually saw it turning against the wind. And if you look at my pictures, we were seeing the same thing at the same time because mine were straight on and then turning and slowly moving in tandem. And they couldn't see what it was attached to, but it seemed to be attached to something or with a force field in between. And you would hear that again over and over again during the mass sighting 2 months later. But anyway, this formation went behind South Mountain, which is south of the airport. And I said, so what was it? And there was silence on the other end. And finally, one of the air traffic controllers said, beats me. I said, wait a minute, you're an air traffic controller. You're supposed to know it's in our airspace. and you didn't know what this was. Anyway, we kept in contact. I continued photographing these phenomena and also learned, by the way, a year later, that there was a mass sighting just like ours a month before our mass sighting, February 19th, 1997, in St. Petersburg, Russia. And a couple of people got the video of it, and actually identical to what I had documented in January of 97. In fact, one of the craft that we have now on the GAP program, and I know I'm going off the line here, but on our website there is Geospatial Animation Project, which is a 12-year compilation of the different objects that people saw during the mass sighting, and one of them is identical to the St. Petersburg video that we now have on the cover of our new documentary cover. At any rate, I continued photographing these things up until and including March 13th, 1997. And there's much more to the story. But on March 13th, 1997, thousands of people were outside, for anybody that doesn't know about this mass sighting, because there's so much out there, misinformation and disinformation. Thousands of people were outside looking up at the sky at the Hale-Bopp comet purposely in the clear northwest sky, when they also caught a glimpse throughout the state. It's not just Phoenix, it's throughout the state for many, many hours. It started about 5:20 in the afternoon, and we have reports from Boeing crew as late as 5:30 the next morning by the airport. At any rate, what they saw and described was a 1 to 2 mile wide formation of these orbs, either attached to something, seemed to be attached to something as the air traffic controllers would describe, or a lot of people saw craft. And again, we have 8 or 9 different craft that people saw. Now, whether it was one craft that could morph into different shapes and the perspective of the person was different, so that's why they saw something a little different, we may never know. But there was definitely a parade throughout the state for many hours and many different things happening at the same time. Also, people saw it was very low altitude, about rooftop level. Some people said it was so low they could have thrown a stone at it, and totally silent, about 30 miles an hour, and some people did see it take off at a tremendous speed. So we're talking about incredible technology here that we still haven't seen 14 years later. But at any rate, thousands of people were outside looking up at the sky at that time and also doing their thing and saw this. We estimate over 10,000 people saw this. So whoever did this wanted to be seen.
Right. So in your professional opinion, what did you see?
Okay. That's a really good question. Because after the mass sighting, now thousands of people had seen what I had seen. And serendipitously, and again, there's a lot more to the story and a lot of coincidences that happen. I do not believe in coincidence any longer. The morning after the mass sighting, interestingly, about a week before, it was getting a little ridiculous. I kept running out, taking pictures of these things, and I had no idea what they were. I started showing the video to my friends. Now, I have to say that anybody that sees the video, it can certainly be mistaken for other things such as flares or whatever, because in the video, it doesn't do it justice. The objects are much smaller, they're white, they flicker in the video, even though the formations are very compelling. Right. So I started to show them to my friends and asked, does anybody know anybody that I can show this to? Well, here's how close I was, Joe. A friend of a friend had a neighbor who had a friend who knew the past president of MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. So I called him up. I told him I had been seeing these lights, which he hadn't heard of, but I have to say there were other people that were also seeing them as I was, and also videotaping them. They have great video of these spinning balls of energy. I said, and I have, a picture from '95, which was the only one that had turned out at the time, that I would love to show to somebody of credence to have it analyzed. And he refers me to a MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, field investigator for the following Tuesday. Now, he calls up to cancel. The only window of opportunity I had was Friday morning at 10 o'clock. He said, fine. That was like for another 2-3 weeks. Well, serendipitously, I walk in the morning after the mass sighting with video in hand. I had no idea that a mass sighting had occurred. But the first question he said was, did you see the mass sighting last night? And I said, well, I saw something very similar in the same location, by the way. And I did speak with the air traffic controllers, and they confirmed that